morning, everybody, and welcome back to
Man, that's a lot of coffee right there.
Money in the Law. My FM 101.3 with your hosts, Jay Marsden and John Drohan. Did I mention we were on Money in the Law? Yes, I did. Money in the Law. This is where two guys bring you anything that you want to know about legal matters, such as estate planning, wills. Maybe if you get in a little trouble with the law, that's the law side, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they can.
the law does.
You can get some information here. Also, on the other side of the fence, you can hear about money. You can hear about like what I can do to maybe improve my financial situation, what I can do to help myself maybe
How
get
much
to
money I can make breaking the law.
get to return. Well, that I don't know if that's covered.
It's always available as a topic.
It's touched on.
Yes.
It's touched on. Jay, how you doing today?
Doing well, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. As a matter of fact, I'm really good because we're kind of coming off. This is the week after the Memorial Day weekend. Yeah. So and I know what you're going to say, and I'm not going to not let you say it. But before we talk about what you're going to say, let's just talk about Memorial Day. All right. So just a reminder, Memorial Day because it comes and goes, right? It's a flash.
Yeah.
It happens. And remember, Memorial Day is the remembrance of the people who have lost their lives in the service of our country.
Absolutely.
So, we talk about Veterans Day, and, Veterans Day, you thank anybody who's ever been in the military. That's great. And, God bless them for all the people that have signed up to serve in the military.
Yep. Thank you for the service. Absolutely right.
So when we talk about Memorial Day, it's a little bit different because these are the guys and women who lost their lives, right?
A little more of a somber occasion.
And so I think about this, and I just wanted to talk about this on the. So I think about this because oftentimes, we know these people as names on a piece of granite, or a piece of marble that we see
bronze plaque,
in in a memoriam for them, like in a town center or in the Washington D.C. or somewhere. And oftentimes, many people don't know, they're not firsthand, or they don't have loved ones, God willing, that didn't pass away in the line of duty in one of the conflicts that America's been in. But I just want to kind of put it into perspective in that oftentimes these are people that are young guys. They're guys or women that are, in their early or mid 20s, even their 30s, and those are young people, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about, like, in today's day and age, of course, we don't have a draft. Like, no one gets pulled into service, although I felt like my old man was kind of looking at me and saying, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I was going to do. He goes, well, what are you going to do after you join the Army? And I was like, well, I was thinking about it. And he goes, no, after you join the Army, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
and it was
sounds like you're being drafted.
But I wasn't drafted. But back in the in the days, not very long ago in our lifetime, in the Vietnam days, guys were drafted, right?
Oh yeah.
So you're talking an 18 and 19-year-old guy who all of a sudden he gets his number gets picked.
Yep.
And then before he knows it, in 6 months he's in Vietnam, and by fate or by just bad luck, then that person doesn't come home. So these are the kind of things that when you think about Memorial Day, like people, there are so many different people that have passed away in the service of our nation, and it's not like they were all like diving in gun ho. It's like they got picked.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
and everybody you've talked to, everybody who has been through that experience and been through the draft days, has a story. Right?
Yeah.
They all have a story, and it is a wildly compelling story. You talk about somebody being younger, and you think about the disconnect between an all-volunteer Army versus the draft Army, and you think about the people that tell you that story about how I got my lottery number, and we sat around either the radio or we sat around the television, and we watched the draft unfold. Yeah. And people who they knew, neighbors, people who they were friendly with, got a different number than they got, and the story goes on there, and it goes on very differently, and it's amazing.
And then history shows kind of where everybody ends up.
Yep.
So when you think about Memorial Day, celebrate it. And Memorial Day is not supposed to be. It is, as Jay said, it's a somber holiday, but it's not one of like sadness and grief and These are people that we're celebrating the people that just because of bad luck, because of bad fortune, that they lost their lives. Many people came home. Many people survived the war, but many people didn't. So it's one of those things where there's a reason you and I get to talk on the radio like
Absolutely
we do.
Right.
We get to push the FCC limits, which we may do today. But there's a reason that we all get to kind of say what we want. There's a reason we all get to watch whatever we want to watch on TV. It's because of those people and the sacrifices that they made. So hats off to all the to all the people who lost their lives, and let's celebrate them in Memorial Day, and not just forget it. It's not just a nice happy weekend, but it's also something that we can kind of carry with us throughout the summer and throughout the year.
Well, we carry a debt of gratitude to them and to their families, right? That's the sacrifice, and so that's what it's all about.
Now, and so that's the kind of serious part of Memorial Day. What's the happy part of Memorial Day?
Well, there's all kinds of happy parts.
It's the beginning of summer.
It's the beginning of summer. There you go. All right. It's all everyone's excited. John's all excited. Summer's here. Summer. Pool's open. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's 58 degrees out, but the pool's open. Yeah, that's right.
So as I was talking to my buddy, my partner in crime on Money in the Law, we had a nice long phone conversation, and he had to go down early. He had to go down to Cape Cod early at he had some kind of an important meeting in Cape Cod, maybe on Friday morning.
We had a barley hops emergency that needed to be immediately addressed, and had to be taken care of right away.
It was one of those emergencies. He had to go by himself, so he had nothing better to do other than to call his pal me. And we had a great conversation. We got talking about all kinds of good stuff.
All kinds of good stuff,
I teed you up for a good movie. What you need to watch? Did you end up watching Training?
You know, it was funny. I woke up I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up, it was on. And it was the end of it. I was laughing because you and I had just talked about it. I think I might have even sent you a clip about that.
You sure did.
Help you enjoy the moment in the movie. But one of Denzel's finer performances.
Yeah, the movie we're talking about is
great Ethan Hawke.
Yeah,
the great Ethan Hawke.
Training Day, which Denzel Washington won an Academy Award for, which for some reason that topic came up. My daughter Lily had never seen it, so we're like, hey, we're gonna watch Training Day tonight, right? It was funny. So her boyfriend, she tells her boyfriend, she goes, hey, have you ever seen Training Day? He goes, of course I've seen Training Day.
Of course I have.
I've seen it 50 times. And then she goes, yeah, and then he starts quoting all the quotes and blah blah blah, and I'm like, wow. There's a difference because, and not to sound sexist, but I feel like that men take movies far more seriously.
They watch them a little differently. They watch them a little differently. That's right. That's right. They look for opportunity to spread that gospel at any particular place that they might need to be. They'll go into some movie shtick at the drop of a hat, right? Yep. That's right.
And you know what? And the guys who pick up on it, they're like, I like that guy. Yep. You know what? He's speaking my language.
Yeah. If you walk into a barbecue as the new guy, right? Best thing you can do, you want to kind of ingratiate yourself. You want to settle in a little bit with your newfound bros, right? Yep. That's what you want to do. You want to try to twist the conversation if you can towards some type of movie discussion.
Yeah, a good movie though,
right? You pick a classic. You want to go Jaws. You want to go Blues Brothers. You want to go Rocky. You twist it in a little bit. Throw a little, what you think is maybe an unknown little nugget on the table about Robert Shaw spending the entire movie half in the bag for Jaws or something like that. And that's all you got to do. Open the door up, and next thing you know,
and see who answers. See who answers the bell, right?
That's right.
Because you may do it, and if nobody answers the bell, you're at the wrong barbecue.
Time for you to. Can we get in the car and go? We're going to find another barbecue, another graduation party, please. That's right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I mean, you start throwing out quotes from Terms of Endearment, and everybody starts jumping in. You're like, you know what? Great movie. I'm at the wrong barbecue.
Beaches. Again, another classic, but I'm kind of lost here. I can't really help you out.
Don't get me wrong.
I don't know a lot about it. Help me out here. Yep, that's right. That's a tough one.
Yeah. All right, so what are we talking about today other than Memorial Day?
I was thinking about this. There's been some exciting news developments in the news as it relates to a topic that we had talked about a couple of weeks back. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, right? God rest her soul. Mm-hmm. She obviously passed away. And when she passed away, we had talked about it on the show that she passed away without a will, much like the great Prince. Who also passed away with no will.
What are these people thinking?
And that's kind of what we talked about on the show, right?
They had their chance. They had their opportunity, right? If they tuned into My FM 101.3.
They could. First of all, they could have come on the show.
They could have streamlined it.
They could have come in. They could have been a guest on the show, right? We would have had Prince on. We would have had Aretha. We would have had Aretha
this week. Yeah, Prince rolling in here on a Saturday morning
to
drink beer with us. Yeah.
Money in the Law brought to you by Prince live from Paisley Park, right? We could have done that. Right.
No, he'd have come to Milford
all day long. All day long.
I'm in Milford all the time, guys. Yeah, I'd love to be on the show. And you know what? I don't have a will. Jay, do you think you could possibly help me?
When we wrap the show up, could you help me out all day long? So we talked about that. So Queen of Soul, right? And again, but we've talked about this, by the way, too. Surrounded by advisors, right? Surrounded by business people.
Like too many, right?
Who you might think might kind of lean over and say, Prince, by the way, you've had a degree of success, right? You might want to plan for your, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. We plan for the worst, hope for the best. But in the unlikely event that something happens, why don't we just say that the world's a crazy place and let's do a little planning? But I digress. All right, but had I been on the team, different story. But so the Queen of Soul passes, and everybody believes at the time of her passing that she had no will. All right. So lo and behold, what do they discover? Wait for it. Buried in the cushions of the couch. Right?
I don't believe it.
What some people believe may or may not operate as her will.
Right.
So
Let's
that's what
roll
we're going to
back
talk
the
about today.
surveillance
That's what
tapes.
we're going to talk
Roll
about
back the
today.
surveillance tapes, and there's Jay Marsden sneaking in with like a mask on, sticking it underneath their bill. Right? Like, whoa, what's this? What? Yeah, it's
funny.
like the bullet they found right next to JFK.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. Oh, the magic bullet. Oh, yeah.
Here it is.
Well, it's funny. People say all the time, hey, Jay, now that we've signed all these documents to you, it's just great. We're glad we have them. Where do we keep these documents? And I can tell you, and this is no disrespect meant to the Queen of Soul, one of the places that we do not usually find ourselves recommending that you keep them
in the mattress.
Is in the couch. Okay, in the couch. Maybe the mattress might work out. At least it's flat. At least the mattress is flat, right? Yeah. But the couch, you fall asleep. It gets all messed up. But it's not.
There's other stuff there. You're looking for the clicker.
That's
like,
right.
What's
that's
this?
Right.
Oh, it's my last will and testament.
Will, clicker, bag of Doritos, can of Fresca, right? All this crazy stuff. Money, right?
Right.
Jujubes, all kinds of crazy stuff in that thing, right? Got to clean that all out. So we generally don't recommend the will be kept in the couch. Now, Barca Lounger, Ottoman.
If it was
story.
one of those ottomans,
story.
right? If it's one of those ottomans that like lifts
Opens
up, right?
Opens up. Yep, you can put it in
you
there.
put it
That's
in
right.
there.
Yeah, but
again, probably not the best place.
No,
not the best place
no,
because
no.
it's kind of in the living room. And who knows? Someone may be hanging around your living room looking for a blanket or something. Looking for a pillow.
Why don't you put those things? Blankets.
Hey, Aretha, what is this? It says last will and testament. Just leave that there. That's fine.
Yeah, leave that there. But help yourself to a blanket. Help yourself to a blanket. It's a little chilly. She didn't like air conditioning, by the way.
No.
She hated air conditioning.
Yeah.
So take care of that. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about this idea of writing a will versus going and drafting a will and having somebody do it for you.
I can't wait. All right, we'll do that
Fascinated,
right after the break.
as
But
you
before
always
we do
are.
go to the break, two things. One, I want to talk about my basketball, which I got here. It's I'm not really sure. It's HMEA. Yeah, I'm with that. And also, who have we forgotten to introduce?
Oh, he's back there. He's
He's
working
back.
twice as hard today. Twice as hard today.
Mr. Double Camera Christian Bidet here with House and Cable Access TV, and we actually did a show with not on House and Cable, and wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. I'm not saying
but what he does is he's holding the camera straight out, like he's doing like core workout.
Yep.
And because he's in such phenomenal shape, it
no
looks
bounce.
That's right. There's no bouncing at all.
Do you need
he's
a tripod?
Holding,
No,
I don't need a tripod. I have these.
That's right. He's got
I have these
two
pipes
cameras
right here. See these
straight out.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll put both cameras.
See these guns? See these guns right here? Did you get tickets?
And they'll just say, look,
Did you get tickets to the
There's
show?
Tickets to Christian's gun show.
That's right. That's what he's holding out.
We'll talk about that a little bit more and this will thing when we come back on Money in the Law. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden, John Drohan. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
I like your attitude.
And we're back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main for Financial. Christian double manning the con. And we're talking about holographic wills. Did you want to talk about something today? Because it's money and the law. Did you have something on your mind?
I'll tell you what. Because I talk about wills. Believe it or not, I talk about it all the time, and
I don't believe it. Given the level of referral business that happens to make its way up the street,
level of non-expertise.
I'm questioning how much you're really chatting about.
I talk about it, and I'm like, you know what? Just write it down on a napkin, stick it in the couch.
Have you heard of a holographic will?
You want to save yourself some money?
Let me tell you something. Just write it down. Here's a piece of paper. I'll be right back.
Yep, write it down. Sign the back. Right, that's your regular signature, and then sign this check. I'll get it over to Jay.
That's right.
No, I did. I mean, we talk about wills all the time because what is it? What is the will is determining? Well, it can determine many things, but in this case, it's determining property, right? Property.
Where's your stuff going to go if you're not around?
And one of the most important, the most important property that people have usually is their money, right?
Yep.
It's their.
Well, they're kids, but mostly money.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you don't manage kids; you manage money. So for you, that's the most important thing.
I'm a money manager.
Yep.
That's right. Kid manager, that's a different animal.
That's a different fee schedule.
Although,
that's a different fee schedule.
We do that. That's another. That's another show.
That's extra. That's a whole other show. That's extra.
All right. No, I do want to talk about this. I do want to learn. Yeah. I'm here to learn.
All right. So the question comes up all the time. People will ask. Every once in a while, somebody will even show up with one.
They'll ask when they get their bill. Is when they.
I could have just wrote this down.
That's right.
Which is not what we're advocating, by the way. But people will ask, can I write my will, right? That's kind of old school, right?
Yeah.
You see that some guy sits down from 100 years ago,
He's bleeding, right? He just got shot in the
That's
the
right.
liver.
This is my last will and testament.
This
right.
is it.
That's
Yeah,
right. Writes it down in the
Christian,
sand, right?
The sand.
The sand by the edge of
That's
the
right.
waves, right?
Beach, yeah.
So the answer is in some states, Massachusetts is one of them, you can have what's called a holographic will. Now, when I say holographic will, I'm not talking about, I know what you're thinking about, okay? So stop yourself right now.
This is awesome.
I'm not talking about
this is the coolest will I've ever
I'm talking about
seen.
a hologram.
It's holographic.
I'm not talking about somebody comes in and then there's
this
like
is
some...
such a made-up thing.
That's right. You can pick a hologram and all that stuff. It's an avatar for your will. It's not it at all. That's what they call it, right? Holographic will.
My
right?
holographic will.
That's
got a
all it
ponytail.
means. All it means is you sat down and you wrote the whole thing out, okay? Handwritten will.
Holographic.
Holographic
right?
will. Handwritten
What if
will.
I write it with my other hand? Like if my one hand shot up.
Leftographic,
right?
rightographic, I don't know what they call it. Just use the one you use the one you write with
Okay.
all the time, all right?
So
you got a couple things. You got to be over 18, okay? And you have to have 2 witnesses who are not only witnesses but are also competent, right? And that's the same criteria for when we do a will. You as the person making the will, even if we draft it, you have to sign it. You have to be of sound mind. The witnesses have to be of sound mind. Everybody has to be on the same page from that perspective. But you can handwrite it out. But again, you have to have 2 witnesses and you have to be of your right mind. All right? But that's what handwriting. Now, is it going to have the same exact formal format that a regular will is going to have? No. But at some point it becomes a testamentary instrument that if something were to happen to you, just like a will that a lawyer might draft up for you, that will would get submitted to the probate court and it would go through the same exact process. Now, the process, as you might imagine, might be a little bit more involved because the court's going to look at a holographic will differently than they might look at one prepared by an attorney, but that's what's going to happen. That will is going to go into the probate court. Somebody's going to be notified that somebody's filed a will. The clerk magistrate or the judge is going to look at the will. They're going to look to see was it witnessed, was it signed, does it have all the elements of a will? Just because you wrote it down doesn't mean that all bets are off, but those specific elements need to be part of that process.
So what happens if I do? So that's great. I can handwrite a will, and again, I'm handwriting my will. When I'm in the airplane that's about to crash, or one of those. But
Sure.
what if I decided not to write it and I'm on my computer? Can I send myself an email will version? How can I do that? Is that like an emailographic?
Well, I don't think that's a word, but you can type it up.
You know what I meant.
You can you can type it up and
Right.
you could
It's
say,
the
look,
same thing, right?
I typed up my will and I signed it.
I'm signing
and I
it,
had
my
a witness.
witnesses?
Yep, absolutely right. So again, all the elements are there. But it's funny that you mentioned the type up thing because one of the things that they talk about is, if you're either, let's say you're poor eyesight, if you're older and you said, look, I'm just going to do my own will and I get a bad feeling, or Abraham Lincoln had a bad dream and I think the end is near and you want to sit down and write it out, guess what? Your handwriting could be illegible, right? It could be very, very challenging.
Well, you said it, right? You said so. If the probate court is looking at a holographic will, they're going to say, they're going to look at this. They're going to make sure, right?
Yeah.
It's the judge's due diligence. It's his or her responsibility to make sure that this is correct and it's accurate. And
gets a little more scrutiny.
Yep.
Gets a little more scrutiny to make sure all
As
the
it
elements are
should.
there. That's right. That's right. As it should. As it should. And by the way, what happens in many cases is you get kind of this combo thing where somebody will walk in the door and they say, "Look, I have a will, okay, and my attorney drafted it up and it's all ready to go and it was signed and notarized and
Got 4 yellow stickies on it.
right? And well, the yellow stickies would be one thing, but then they start marking it up, right?
Yeah.
They start crossing stuff out and they start arrowing things and moving people around and moving this person
Cross
here.
it out there.
Okay.
John Drohan. That's
Bad.
crazy.
That's right. Cross it off. Okay.
Rights to money in the law, John.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what we generally suggest to people is that's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, that's bad. If you're gonna change the will, you could certainly take a copy out. Okay, mark up the copy and then bring the copy to your attorney and say, I want to do a new will, but I made all these markups on my old will. This is the copy, not the original. And the court is always looking for the original will, right? The copy thing, for all the right reasons, They don't like to deal with copies because you don't know, is it a first generation copy? Is it an 11th generation copy? You know, why, you've probably done it, if you tried to, photocopy something, you white it out, then you photocopy, and it looks a whole heck of a lot better because the whiteout covers up all the markings. And so, so when you start to make photocopies,
now we're getting
it
into
becomes suspect. It becomes real suspect. Right?
I mean, well, think about it. You deal with legal documents all the time, right?
Yes.
And that's the rule of thumb is if there is any potential for discrepancy or any potential for this thing to not be fully accurate, they're going to be like, no. I mean, in the finance world, it's like there's
you can't
no,
mess around in
no
the finance
whiting
world.
out.
No,
It's original. Everything's original. We need original stuff, and for very good reason, because if somebody fiddles with something, in particular, like when you're talking about a will and some probate court gets, this thing's, and it's all marked up, and there's, like you said, like there's names crossed out, like, this is valid. It's not.
No, that's right.
It's not. They're going to be like, no. I mean, anybody could have done this.
And by the way, this sounds obvious. Like to you and I, this sounds obvious. But in the day-to-day world, people mock stuff up. They cross stuff out all the time. They think you can cross out, notarize, initial everything. And these are legal documents. These are legal documents that transfer ownership interests in property, right? Sometimes a baseball mitt, sometimes a house down the Cape, sometimes real property, right? We're talking some serious money, right?
Yeah,
so just kind of like saying, oh, well, how about a photocopy that's all beat up because the machine, I didn't have enough dimes at the library to get the machine to work the right way, so this is the best I got. So first of all, they always want the original. So if you come in with an original handwritten will that's hard to read or illegible, and you don't know,
or 75 years old.
I think I get the spelling right. I'm not sure I get the spelling right. Does that say 15% or 50%? This creates real challenges, and it can create real challenges. Now, does it work in the absence of anything else? Maybe. Maybe it could.
Right. It's better than nothing. However, like you just said the word. You said the key word in that whole sentence was challenge, right?
Right.
Because when something goes to probate, it's open season, right?
Right.
So if my parents' will goes into probate, or let's say like I have like a long lost illegitimate brother somewhere, and then that will goes to probate, and it's a handwritten, can't really eligible or not legible, and you can't read the numbers. I mean, that long lost illegitimate brother could come in and be like, well, no, I think that's not. I challenge that, right?
Well, and my thought would be if you're handwriting a will, you obviously have some very specific intent, right? I mean, you've thought it through to the point that you've said, you know what, I better write this down so it's clear what my wishes are, right? And then to your point, it could be, you could make it more unclear. So you get two things going on. You've clearly in your own mind, you've decided that I want things to go a certain way. So if you know that, then the best suggestion is get yourself to the attorney's office, right? So they can sit down and make sure that this happens the way you want to do it. Because if you sort of ham and egg it and figure out that this is going to work, to your point, you might, and by the way, this happens all the time, right? People write something and then they sign it and they go, well, I signed it. That must be good enough. I mean, I sign stuff all the time and they let my kid leave school, so that's the bar, right?
There you go.
Well, no, that's not the bar. In the will world, the bar is the witnesses. The bar is the sound sound mind. So those things become a real issue, and so you want to make sure that while better than nothing, could create more problems than it solves. And if you're really that concerned to go to the lengths where you're going to sit down and actually handwrite this thing out, pick up the phone, make the call the attorney.
That's it. Remember, what is the purpose of the will? The purpose of the will is that you want things, you want your estate, you want your goods, you want your whatever it is,
your wealth.
Whatever it is, you want things to go in a certain direction.
Yep.
A certain specific direction.
Yep.
Right? You don't want them, because if when people die intestate or intestate, however, when people die and they don't have a will, then it's going to go somewhere.
That's right.
Right? It's going to go somewhere. And you know what? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but when you die and your estate is being settled, you're dead. Like there's nothing.
Right.
You have no more control over it anymore.
But we've had situations like that. Like for example, the will versus the no will. Right? We've had people come in and they say, look, my mother, my father, whoever it is, some loved one is really, really ill. and they want to make sure that their estate, they're worried about probate, they're worried about all the things that we talk about. And so the first question we'll say is,
listen to the show.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So they're very informed, and they come in and I will say to them, well, can they sign a document? And the answer in many cases is no, they can't, either because they're physically unable to do it, they're cognitively unable to do it, they just don't have the mojo to sign a document. And then they say, well, if we don't do anything, what happens? Mm-hmm. And then in some cases, the answer is, well, if you don't do anything, all of Dad's estate, all of Dad's wealth, all of Mom's wealth is going to go to, you have kids? Yeah, there's 5 of us. Okay, yeah. It's going to go to all you guys equally. Is that going to work? Is there any issues with that? And somebody goes, well, no. I mean, ideally, we would like to avoid probate. We'd like to have a named executor or personal representative. But you know what? We all get along. There's no issues. It's not a problem. In that case, other than jumping through the hoops of the probate process, it will probably end okay. Yep. But if you're sitting there and you're noodling around, like it's really important for me to write this down, right? It's really important for me to make sure that somebody knows what I want. Then that's probably not that situation, right? You're doing something that's a little off the grid, something that's a little different, and something that needs to be addressed.
I disagree with you. I mean, I disagree with you in the sense that I fully agree with you.
Okay.
Right. No. All right. Stay with me. So, if someone's sitting there and they're like in your example before, where if someone is they're incapacitated and they can't sign it, I'll bet you if you could go back in time and say, if you could. Go back 5 years when they were able to do it. Do you think you could say, hey, listen, would you like to go back in time so you could sort this out? Because 999 million out of, 2 million people, they would want to have some sort of direction on where their estate's going to go.
Sure.
They would want to, they don't just want to leave it to the probate court.
Well, and some people, even if they know by leaving it through the probate court that it ends up getting where they want it to go, some people want to feel like, look, I decided this, right? Yeah. I didn't.
It's mine.
I didn't ignore my family. This is important to me, right? We've talked about this on the show before. Doing an estate plan is the ultimate act of love, right? It gives your family an understanding of what your wishes are and makes their job easier. And a lot of people say, look, I don't want to die without a will, because then it makes it seem like I didn't care, right? It wasn't important enough to me, right? So some people will say, look, even though it ends up in the same place, I want to control what that looks like.
Yeah.
Even though the outcome is the exact same thing.
Right. And we've talked about, all the different means where you can make sure that happens, sooner rather than later. It could be much easier. It could happen in such a way where, maybe there are some you want everybody to get equal, but you may specifically want some people to have one thing and some people to have another thing. But again, at the end of the day, you want to be in control of what you've created. Like this is your stuff, and you've worked your entire life, and you want, like we talk about, winning the game. So if I'm 100 years old and I'm dying on my front porch, and I have money left over, I have assets left over, and I can pass those on to make the lives of my children and my grandchildren better, then of course I want to do that. Like, right? That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I would rather have you, and after the break we'll talk about codicils to a will, and we'll talk about
those are big words.
Whether or not your lawyer keeps your will. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I would rather have somebody spend that time. Don't handwrite your will. Handwrite either a message to your loved ones, or handwrite, here's what I want to have happen to very specific, personal, sentimental items. This is where I want things to go. Right? Yeah. To me, that's what those types of handwritten efforts are for. That way, you cover all the bases. You cover the estate with the will, you cover the estate with the trust, and then you cover these personal items. And then we come back, we'll talk about codicils and where you keep your will.
Before we go to our break, I just want to reemphasize this commercial for the Marsden Law Group. Do your estate plan. It is the ultimate act of love.
It is.
Marsden Law. We'll be right back.
It is. It is. And we're back. Money Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group.
Watch your levels.
John Drohan, Main Effort Financial, Christian, both of them off camera, behind the scenes, mocking my final comments as we ended the show, and I still stand by it.
For those of you who don't know that, so we have to the right of us here that you can't really see, is we have the sound levels for the radio, right? So, and of course, Ray and Rick. Rick doesn't care so much. Ray is all over.
Ray's all over. We go outside the lines.
You see these things.
Ray is
right, and it looks like an EKG machine, right? So it's like when there's excitement and enthusiasm, it kind of goes a little too high, and we have to try and stay within the kind of stay, writing within
It's
the
like
lines.
coloring. It's like coloring.
Exactly.
If we go outside the lines, it's like bringing home for Ray. It's like bringing home a bad report card. Like,
exactly.
You know you're going to get yelled at.
C-.
You know you're going to get yelled at.
Yeah.
Did you see your levels at the last show? That's
Yeah.
it's like, did you see your grade from
It
biology?
does. We get
Did you
emails
see?
about it,
That's
right?
right.
There's a picture of it. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys.
He circles it with red pen.
Yeah. Do you care?
Puts comments
do you,
on it.
Do you even care?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you don't even care when you show up.
Back to our commercial.
Yes.
I mean, your commercial.
So prior to the break,
talking
we're
about the
talking
estate
about
plan being the ultimate
holographic
act of
wills.
love.
Well, the estate plan is the ultimate act of love, and we talked about we talked about a holographic will. We talked about obviously following up on the fact that they found what they don't know the notes that they found from Aretha's couch cushions. They don't know whether those are meant to be a will. Are those meant to be notes that she was preparing to bring to the lawyer so that the lawyer could prepare the will? So there's a little bit of a vagueness to that.
Yeah.
So this is something that's going to get sort of hammered out, if you will, in the probate court to figure out what they
The
actually
thing-
have.
But so what if Aretha Franklin had, if I'm not mistaken, Aretha Franklin has children, right? Has like
Yes, I believe
children.
she does,
Like,
yep.
So she has almost more of like a direct path to her estate, where in the case of Prince, has no children, right?
Correct, yep.
No children and no spouse.
And no spouse and a fair number of half siblings. I
Exactly.
believe. Yep.
So imagine if you find, Prince on the on the bottom of his couch, right? This is my last will and testament. He actually writes it on the cushion. Let's pretend, right?
Sure.
And yeah,
Purple.
and yeah, of course. And he writes that. I mean, this is what we talk about, like kind of these piranha feeding frenzies at these estate. I mean, Prince has, an ungodly amount of money in his estate. So this is where if like, well, look what I found. I got the will. It's all left right here to my, my third cousin Jay and his friend John. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute, and then that's when people they not only do they fight it, they go and hire a really expensive attorney to come in and fight it, because that attorney knows, what, there's money in this.
Well, then there's going to be handwriting analysis, which is not necessarily a science per se. So there's going to be handwriting analysis, and they're going to look at contemporaneous writing that they know that you wrote, and then they're going to try to cross-reference that with this. And then there's going to be a lot of questions about, first of all, how sick was the person, sound mind, does their signature look different now because their signature, when you're comparing it, was from something that they wrote out, but then
and in Prince's case, remember he changed his name to the symbol.
So you don't know what's he going to sign? Is he
you don't know
signing the
who
symbol?
signed it.
Signing his
Whose
name?
will is it, right?
And then you're writing on the couch. I mean, how many of us have tried to write on the couch, right? You never write on the couch. You always reach for like a red book or a McCall's. You put that underneath whatever you're writing on so you can actually write on it.
If you are writing on the couch, then you're wrong there, right?
Well,
why is there a magic marker near the couch?
Well, first of all, that's the recipe number. If you have kids, what's the first thing you don't put together? A couch and any type of writing.
No one's doing their homework on the couch.
That's right. At the table. So you can try to write on the couch. Now, of course, your signature's not going to look the same. Your writing's not going to look the same. You're all over the couch. And if you've had the couch for a long time, it has that spot, that you want to get that spot because it's got the comfortable spot on it.
For those of you who actually caught this, is McCall's still a magazine? Because I was
curious to see who was gonna pick up on that.
The McCall's reference, and what was it? Red Book. McCall's and Red Book. Those are two magazines that I'm guessing Jay's mother had growing up, because those are two magazines that my mother had growing up.
If you appreciate the McCall's Red Book, would you shout out to the website, right? Go to the website for moneyinthelaw.net and tell us, give us just a thumbs up.
Yep.
Just give us a thumbs up for recognizing that reference.
Send us a picture of your McCall's, the one on your coffee table right now. The McCall's, the 1977 McCall's.
First person who writes in recognizing that reference and appreciating it, we will buy you a subscription to McCall's and Red Book.
Which it doesn't exist.
Beach reading,
We're
right there.
probably just going to have to stick with Reader's Digest.
Beach reading, right? At our Better Homes and Garden. Beach reading right there at its best. So two things we talked about before the break that we wanted to kind of wrap up on the back end. Number one, codicils or codicils, right? People always come in and say, hey, I need to do
a codicil. In Massachusetts, a codicil.
That's a codicil.
Yeah, I need a codicil. Yeah, but I need this Cape Codicil. What is this Cape Cod thing?
Can I get that? Can I get that with some extra cranberry and ice on the side?
My dad said I need a codicil, and Uncle Bob said he needs one too. Bobby,
3 more codicils down here, please. Down here, please. Larry, 3 more codicils.
We were drinking codicils and Hyannis last week.
And another thing of fried clams and 3 more codicils, please. What a blast. At the Mill Hill Club. It was fantastic.
Give me 2 bottles of the codicil.
Asked the woman.
What kind is that?
Asked the woman to dance. I said, you're a cover model. You could be on McCall's or Red Book. Would have looked like that down the beach.
I'm 2 codicils into this.
Then I asked her to dance. I got 2 codicils that I'm asking her to
I didn't realize this codicil so bubbly.
So people say all the time, I want to. So here's what we advise.
Christian's even laughing at that one.
Yeah, that's right. He's like, this is radio gold. So we try to avoid you having. If you're going to do a new will, let's say it this way: if you want to do a codicil to your will, the answer is let's just do a new will, because all the codicil does is give you a history of all the times you've changed your mind. And for some people who might be affected by your estate plan, you may not have changed it to the better. All right. So what we try to do is I say, look, if you could sign a codicil that you would normally just stick on the back of your will, let's just get rid of the whole will and let's just sign a new one, so you only have one will, not a will and a codicil, and then a second codicil, and then a third codicil. All these changes that highlight all the fighting and the dysfunction.
We all know what happens after 2 codicils.
That's exactly right.
Nothing good.
After 2 codicils, you have to do another codicil. So we're going to avoid that if we can and just do a new will. Again, if you can sign the codicil, just sign a new will. You don't need a history of your changing of your mind stapled to the back of your will. And then the second thing is, where do you mentioned before about the need for originals, right? Where do you keep your will? So what a lot of attorneys will do out of the goodness of their heart is they will agree to keep your will. They will agree to safeguard your will for you in the will vault, okay? So that if something ever happens, you call them and then they will give you your will. So you'll get your estate planning documents and you'll have a copy of the will, and then the attorney volunteers out of the goodness of their heart to keep the original.
You might want to ask your attorney to see the will vault, because your attorney could be sitting there. Now I'm not talking about present company.
No, present company definitely excluded.
If you have some of these ham and egg attorneys, right, and they say, oh yeah, we're going to keep it in the will vault, and the will vault is really, it's like this brown paper bag that's right next to the recycling bin.
That's right. Will vault, will bag, whatever it is, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a Stop and Shop. It's a full-time Stop and Shop bag.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's a rationale for that. We joke about it all the time with people. We say, look, that's called, as an attorney, that's called our retirement plan, right? So we hang on to the will, and then we wait, right? And then death and taxes, right? Something's going to happen. We get a phone call, and we're right there. So we've all moved on. We've all retired, and we just sit around. We wait for the phone to ring, and we just probate estates for all the wills that we've written, because we get them all held. We're holding on to all of them. We're holding on to all of them.
Ain't going anywhere else, right?
Right, not going anywhere. We attempt. Our personal practice preference is to avoid that. We try to give you the original will. The reason is you are in control of your document. Okay, I don't know where I'll be if I get called to my great reward sooner than I was planning on it. I have a plan. I have a practice,
backup plan.
I have a backup plan. I have a practice section plan. But you don't want to be chasing this down. And this happens. We get this. I mean, we get this job a lot where somebody says, "Well, we had the will. It was with the attorney. Go find him." Right?
Yeah.
And
he's retired 10 years ago. Who knows where he is?
Yeah. Or something happens to him. We're all mortal, right? Something happens, so you don't know where these things go, and they kind of go wandering around. So I would rather have you as the client be in control of that document, so you can always provide it to me. Now, obviously, again, that means you yourself got to find a place to put it. But I'd rather have that responsibility rest with the client, so that they don't have to come looking for me, and I'm not looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life wondering, what do I do with all these wills? Because at some point down the road, someone's going to come looking for them, and then you got to either babysit them, or you got to think about it. You're in business for 20 or 30 years, and you do 100 wills a year. That's a lot of wills, and that's a lot of
paper.
It's a lot of paper that you got to track down, and you don't be responsible for it. So we just prefer to give that to our clients, let them have the original document, in the hopes that they're so happy with the work that we've done for them that if something were to come up, they'd come back to us and ask us.
Well, and then the other part of that is that when they lose it, or it gets misplaced, or it gets destroyed somehow, or whatever, the dog eats it or whatever, then who are they going to call? They're going to call you, and they're going to say, I need a copy of my will. And you're like, I happen to have it right here on this new fancy thing called a computer, and I print it right up, and we re-sign it, we redo it, and make it official again.
We have a copy of it. Yeah, but again, we've seen that happen where practices turn over, something happens to an attorney, and they have just a garage full of these things. And they get a catalog.
It's a good thing you have a garage, right?
That's right. That can hold all these things. So where do you keep it? You keep it at your house. You keep it someplace where you keep your important papers. It doesn't have to go into a safety deposit box. Just keep it at the house. If something ever happened, then we would be able to provide a copy, and then we would update everything, and you'd be right where you need to be anyway.
So as we wrap this up, if you come to Main Effort Financial and we're having a discussion, you say, I have a will. because we wrote it up ourselves. We did it. We did it. Even if I went online, or even if I bought software for it, I will tell you. And again, as an advisor, as a fiduciary advisor, right? Say, here, all fiduciary means is, this is what I would do if I were you, right?
Yeah.
This is truly what I would do if I were you.
Yeah, your interests come first.
Yeah. So if I'm you, and all this, so I'll ask the questions. Is all this really important to you? Is all your hard-earned money, your property, your houses, is that all important to you? Yes. Is it important as to where it ends up? Like, do you want one of your kids' ex-spouses to have your Cape Cod house? And you're like, absolutely not. And you say, okay, so if this is important to you, and it sounds like it is, then you need to do this. You need to do it as well as possible. You don't need to half step this. In other words, if you're going to sell your house, if you're going to finally sell your house and move down to Florida, and your house needs a paint job, right? And you say, well, you know what? If I don't paint my house, then I'm going to get X amount for my house. And if I do paint my house, then I'm going to get Y. And if I paint it really well, I'm going to get Z. What do you want? X, Y, or Z? And you're going to say, look, you want to do a good job. So I will always advise clients to go to an attorney. Like, go to an attorney and because all what we talked about today, that you can, all your hologram will, and you could write it yourself, and you could say, this is what I want, blah, 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 blah. But the reason that you need to go to an attorney, not because they know how to use their computer and they're going to make it look pretty, but because they understand, they know that they're going to capture everything that you need to make sure that you have to capture with regard to the probate court, with regard to the law, with regard to the law changes that happen on a regular basis. So unless you're schooled up on all that, unless you're an attorney yourself, don't do it. Don't go to an attorney. Make sure that it's going to cost you some money, but it's money well spent. It's an investment, right?
That's right.
It's an investment that you're going to say, look, I want to make sure that my estate passes on exactly how I want it to. Now that I'm in sound mind and body, because someday I'm not going to be in sound mind and body. This is how I want my estate to pass forward to my heirs. And I don't want anything to go wrong with that, right? It's the same thing. So am I going to drive a car? My brakes need work. Either I can fix them, or I can take it to the mechanic, right? It's I got two choices. And if I fix them, am I going to be okay with my daughter? Hey, listen, go. Yeah, you're driving to Chicago. Go ahead. Good luck. Don't worry, Dad fixed the brakes. No.
Yeah, I took a crack at it.
Yeah.
I Googled it.
Yeah, I had a YouTube video.
You should be fine.
And Uncle Danny told me it was fine. I only had one codicil.
Here's a picture of codicils. You're all set. Yeah, it's good.
By
the way, just so you know, somebody, we just got a phone call the other day, and somebody was upset because there was no reading of the will. Okay, and we tell this to people all the time. That's not a thing. Okay, I mean,
it could be.
It could be.
It could be great TV.
Right. That's exactly it.
Great TV. It could be great reality TV.
It's great entertainment, but there is no reading of the will. Right? Nobody gets together. That's not a formal thing. There isn't we joke.
I think we just came up with something.
We joke about the setting, right? It's a big conference room. Somebody always comes in.
Mahogany.
Everybody comes in.
Oak.
A lot of oil paintings.
Cigar smoke.
That's right. Green leather chairs. That's right. And then somebody comes in. Everyone's always wearing
Banker's
black.
lamps.
Everyone's always dressed up. The attorney comes in, and then everybody is just sitting there, always looks around and says, there's always one other person in the room. That's how we always tell people. Now, that other person may be a 24-year-old male, might be a 24-year-old female, depending on who's passed away, but there's always somebody else in the room, and everybody kind of wonders who that person is.
They start flipping through old family photo albums, saying,
they don't look like anybody. They don't look like anybody. They're always well dressed.
Yeah.
And for some reason they seem to be
they're always early.
That's right.
Yeah. They're the first ones there. Yeah.
First ones there. They got a great seat, and they're just waiting for the reading, because the reading somehow tends to bend their way, right?
It's funny. Somebody as I picture that room, there's somebody who's going to be wearing a bow tie.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's going to have one of those handlebar mustaches, and someone's going to have a pocket watch. Yeah. And maybe the same guy.
And then there's somebody dressed like a roadie, hanging all over the chair, doesn't know how to sit up straight, right? Usually a nephew or a cousin or something like that, right?
Up any better.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's the scene, and that just doesn't really happen a lot. What
Why
happens
is that not a TV show?
What usually happens is somebody goes over your house, they get your will, they take it home, they close all the doors, they pull all the window shades, they break it up, and they look, and they see what's going to happen. And then from there, they decide how much work they're going to put in. So there you go. That's it. So holographic wills. Don't write them up. Come to us. Let us write it up for you. You can read it. You can love it.
You can write it, but then take it to the attorney.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it.
Let's clean it up. Let's buff it all up. Shine that thing up. Shine that thing up.
We'll be back next week on Money and Law on MyFM 101.3, the world's greatest radio station, and Holliston Cable Access TV, the world's greatest TV station, with your hosts, Jay Marsden and John Drohan. We'll be back. See you next Saturday.
Have a great week.
All right.